Alright, so are violent video games really responsible for aggression? So, what the media has to say about this topic. In the slide, we have President Donald Trump and other politicians in Washington that believe that video games are to blame for the aggression that causes mass shootings in America. These headlines have prompted a resurgence of debates to really see if aggression is caused by violent video games. In this presentation, we will be analyzing various empirical articles that either directly contradict these headlines or prove that there is not enough evidence to make such claims. The two articles that we have here directly contradict the claims made in the media. These two articles are the Pan study and the Ferguson study. So the first article we're going to be taking a look at is the Pan study. The Pan study hypothesized that long-term exposure to violent video games is associated with abnormal spontaneous brain activity. They measured brain activity via a resting fMRI technique. This means that brain activity was measured without a given task. The researchers found that their hypothesis was unsupported in the sense that there were no significant changes in the ALFF of the participants. This is stated in the first excerpt on this slide. For background, ALFF is a measure of the strength of regional spontaneous fluctuations of a given brain region. Other excerpts on the slide include how the researchers emphasize the environmental factors that can cause aggression, such as childhood trauma or family background. And they also emphasize that the individual characteristics of the participants, such as cognitive styles and criteria for moral judgment, can impact aggression in the real world. So now the second study we have here is the Ferguson study, and it's unique in the sense that it was one of the few studies that were truly longitudinal. In this study, researchers in Singapore used youth with a mean age of 11 to test their hypothesis that aggressive video games are related to playing aggressive video games are related to increased aggression and decreased prosocial behaviors in the real world. So 7 traits were measured across a span of 2 years, with the participants being surveyed 3 times at 1-year intervals. The variables were measured primarily through a Likert scale survey. Some examples of measured traits include physically aggressive behavior and aggressive fantasies. The researchers find their hypothesis disproven in the sense that aggressive video game exposure was not linked to either aggressive behavior or prosocial behavior, and this can be confirmed by the excerpt in the first picture on the slide. And the researchers also say that it would require more hours of M-rated gameplay than possible in a day to produce clinically significant aggression in the real world. So now we're going to shift focus onto articles that do not offer enough evidence for the claims made in the media. And this is really due to 2 reasons. One, they are not longitudinal, and 2, they do not measure behavior in the real world. They only measure it in a lab setting. One thing to note about this is that since most of these studies only employ brain imaging as their primary source of evidence, brain imaging methods tend to be overconvincing, and that can lead to over-exaggeration, which is what we see in the media today. So the Hummer study tested a hypothesis that individuals who played a violent video game for 30 minutes would show less lateral prefrontal activity during a response inhibition task than those who had played a non-violent video game. This inhibition task was simply not pressing a button. So by doing this, the researchers found reduced bold activity in the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, which is an area responsible for the suppression of unwanted thoughts. So the main thing obviously wrong with the study is that it makes a pretty broad claim, based on playing a video game for only 30 minutes, which of course does not really mean anything in relation to real world behavior. The Montag and Bartholow study are similar in the sense that they both find lower activation of brain activity in participants that view an unpleasant image following exposure to a violent video game. The Montag study, however, uses the fact that there was lower activation of the left lateral frontal cortex, which was measured via an fMRI technique. The Bartholow study uses the fact that participants demonstrated lower amplitudes of P300 waves, which were obtained via EEG. The main thing wrong with the Montag study is that the lower activations could be due to personal experiences/trauma that was recalled when viewing the negative images. The main thing wrong with the Bartholow study is that a sample of 34 is too small to generalize a claim to a population. Also, to sum up, all these articles state that further research on this topic is required, hence no causation can be formed from any of these articles.